Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney also spoke today about a deal he's made with the BC government to buy unused condos and convert them to affordable housing, a move that critics are calling a bailout for developers.
I want to say up front, I don't think we've done, myself included, a particularly good job of rolling this out and explaining exactly what it is. So buying them at a discount at the right time, financing and terming that out, setting up a rent-to-own structure for truly affordable housing. That's an opportunity.
Avi Lewis is the federal leader of the NDP, and he joins me now. Avi Lewis, good to see you, sir. Thank you for taking some time today.
This is our last chance to dance this season, maybe, David. I'm delighted to be here. Well, and I'm here in Montreal for the Fête Nationale, so bonne fête. It's a beautiful time to be in Quebec.
Well, that's great. Well, we're year-round here at Power and Politics, so we'll have you back at some point later this summer.
Good.
I wanted to ask you about what the Prime Minister said today, as someone who has run in British Columbia and lives there, about the plan to use money to buy some of these condos that are sitting vacant. He clarified it today, the Prime Minister did, that this is a total program about $1.5 billion, driven by the province. The federal exposure is only about 150 million. And the idea is to get some of these condos at below value and maybe go to rent to buy and affordable housing. Is that the type of plan the NDP can get behind?
Well, we need more housing. We need more housing for families. And small condos that were built as part of the financialization of housing in this country and the condo boom, which is now looking like a condo crash in some cities, is not where we want to see the massive federal investments. We want to see massive federal investments in non-market housing, in supportive housing, in the kinds of housing, cooperative housing, the kind of housing that people can actually afford. Obviously, if there's units sitting empty, it's better that they be made affordable for families. Bailing out developers is not the way to do it in the view of the federal NDP. It is absolutely to unleash the kind of wartime level build out of housing that the Prime Minister promised in the election campaign and throughout the last year, but for non-market housing, not for housing that becomes a financial asset to speculate on. Right. Which is really the root of the problem of the housing crisis in Canada.
Right, I take your point on that, and they have measures they say will do those things, though it's not quite there in the numbers. But this seems to be a bit of a program of opportunity, a buying opportunity, to use that word, that the government of BC came up with. I mean, does it make sense to you to if these assets are there and you can get them and use them for this purpose, to try it? What do you think?
I think it makes sense to put housing into the market for families to live in. Absolutely. But if Brookfield or other big real estate companies and the real estate industry in Canada, the investment trusts and the major corporations that have been gobbling up housing and speculating on it, using algorithmic pricing, another form of surveillance pricing, to jack up rents across neighborhoods with different corporations colluding through technology to just boost prices. And now they have bad investment decisions that they should pay for those bad investment decisions, and the public shouldn't. But again, the key for us as the federal NDP is we need a massive build out of housing that families can actually afford. This is a relatively small program at a national scale, and we have been promised by this government a wartime level build out. What we see is a consistent approach by this government that cares more about corporations and their wish lists, which go to the front of the line time and time again. The actual material needs of Canadians are not given the same priority, the same funding, or the same big announcement strategy.
Right. Well, they did say that they're going to buy these at below market prices, so it will help developers to a degree, that they'll be able to move it, but they're not going to get full price. But we'll have to see until we actually get the
waiting
details.
For a lot of we're waiting for a lot of details. I think we agree. I think that real estate developer haircuts are legitimate in a time like this when huge fortunes have been made and families need housing desperately now.
Right. So you say you're joining us from Quebec, and you were there for Saint Jean-Baptiste, or as we call it in Newfoundland, St. John's Day. There's going to be a by-election there. The Prime Minister wouldn't commit to having the 6 by-elections that we're expecting from resignations all on the same day, but we know that Mr. Boulerice's seat will be up for grabs. How important is it for you to hold that seat as you try to rebuild the party, Mr. Lewis, after losing Laurie Idlout to the defection and Mr. Boulerice to provincial politics?
Well, I think the fact that I'm here and that I'll be back and that we have a very enlivened Quebec section. What part of the leadership race that was not well understood or reported on is the doubling of members in a lot of seats in Montreal, and a big boost to our activated base here. So going in the Saint Jean Baptiste Day parade here in Montreal yesterday, we had a decent contingent. We've got a bunch of young people and a lot of people coming back to the party, and a real sense of energy at our base. We've already been knocking doors in that riding. The by-election hasn't been called yet. We have a couple of different candidates who have put themselves forward. There will be a contested nomination that's going to happen very soon. And the summer and fall are going to be a massive mobilization of our ground game here in Montreal. And I'm excited for it. Of course, we want to keep it. Of course, a by-election like this is a high stakes moment, and all we can do is try to attract the best candidates and work our butts off and expand our offer here in Quebec, and that's what we're doing. So
is it a must win? Is it a must win for your party that you just absolutely have to hold this? This has been your beachhead in Quebec, for a decade now.
It doesn't alter the electoral math nationally. It doesn't get us back party status. It doesn't get us seats on committees or opposition day motions in the House. You know all of this. It's a critically important seat to us because it is a progressive riding and the kind of riding that we want to win across the country. And we're gonna bust our butts trying to win it. And we're gonna do it the way that New Democrats do things, which is one-on-one conversations with neighbors about the impossible cost of food in this country, about the ridiculous price of housing in this country, and the fact that the liberal government makes big promises and spends tens of billions of dollars on major projects, on defense and military spending, on corporate Canada's wish list, and cannot seem to prioritize the actual everyday emergency of just trying to get by in a country where banks make $70 billion a year, oil and gas makes $90 billion in wartime profits, and we can't seem to summon the courage to actually tax these vast corporate profits appropriately and rebuild back our healthcare system, which is being privatized as we speak, and build back our system of care and fundamental health and the things that actually make people's daily lives better. That's the focus. That's the offer in Rondement La Petite Patrie.
Right. I know it will not change the parliamentary math. I take your point on that. But if you do not hold this seat, that means there are no New Democrat members of parliament east of Winnipeg. Right?
Yeah.
Leah Gazan is the
sure.
closest you have to the Atlantic, and Manitoba is a long way from the Atlantic. So, I mean, in terms of like linguistic balance, regional balance, it seems like it is a must hold for the New Democrats.
I just don't know what that means, David. I mean, sure, it's a must hold. I don't know what is a must hold. Every seat we have is must hold, but it's far beyond that. And a party doesn't come back from 5 seats to contesting for power in a country the size of Canada in a by-election or in a short period of time. We are in this rebuild for the long term, and every single milestone is an opportunity to build our base, to reinvigorate our offer, and to expand Canadians' understanding that the NDP has a critical place in the life of this country. Canadians do not want a two-party system. Canadians are watching the militarization of our society. They're watching our prime minister celebrate wars in other parts of the world. They're watching our prime minister pre-capitulate and make all kinds of concessions to Donald Trump before we get anything back from the Americans. And there needs to be a progressive alternative to speak up, let's say, for climate change policy, which has been completely dismantled by this government in a time when 5 years after the heat dome, David, remember the heat dome in British Columbia, more than 600 precious lives lost in that heat apocalypse in my province of British Columbia. The town of Lytton burned to the ground. Just this past week, it was evacuated again. This week, there are hundreds of people dying in Europe from the unbelievable heat dome there. The climate emergency didn't go anywhere just because the government of Canada decided to double down on fossil fuels and spend tens of billions of dollars and 1.5, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, not of our budget, but our entire economy on weapons and war. These priorities are out of step with where I believe most Canadians are at, and only the NDP is going to consistently stand up for these kinds of issues.
The Prime Minister today said there would be announcing humanitarian aid to go to Venezuela, which is obviously dealing with the catastrophic fallout from the double earthquakes that they had there. And in laying out the promise to offer help, he talked about the difficulties in helping in countries like Venezuela, where I think it's been since 2019 they haven't had formal relations with, and he also referenced Iran, which goes back even longer, 2012, I believe, since it's been suspended, suggesting that not as an endorsement of these countries, but for the practical offering of consular support and humanitarian support, maybe it's time to reconsider some sort of a re-engagement. What did you take from those comments from the Prime Minister? What do you think Canada should do there?
I think that's a more sensitive thing to say when people are dying in an earthquake. But I think that our foreign policy in general has been playing little brother to the United States for way too long, especially a time when that imperial power is stomping around the world with impunity, destabilizing whole regions and our daily lives, from the gas price spike and everything that's happened in Iran. And Canada needs an independent foreign policy desperately. We should be defending Cuba and rushing humanitarian fuel supplies to Cuba.
But on Iran and Venezuela, on this point, because the Iranian diaspora is probably anxious about this move, right?
I mean, sure, and we need to have the ability to help people in countries around the world. There are lots of bad regimes out there, David, and we do business with a lot of them. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, to whom we sell weaponry, are implicated in mass civilian deaths and genocides around the world, in Sudan, in conflicts like in Congo, that are fueled by countries that we are very proud to announce trade deals for, where others who have done nothing to us as a country we have aligned our policy and our foreign policy too much with the United States over not just the past couple of years, but past decades. And we are left without consular representation in a lot of parts of the world simply because we followed the United States and its demands. And I think Canadians want an independent foreign policy. And I'm glad to hear the Prime Minister say this, because we need to be able to help people who come to Canada from every country in the world. And we need to be able to help people around the world as Canadians who care about other people when they go through disasters, regardless of whether they live in wherever they live in the world.
Okay, we've gone over time. One last quick question. Tomorrow morning, Friday morning, the Prime Minister is going to announce the plan for 24 Sussex, which has been derelict and vacant. Should Canada just bite the bullet and use taxpayers' money to rebuild the official residence in a capacity that works for a Prime Minister in the 21st century?
This is not something which I have devoted most of my life to crafting an elaborate and enticing program, David. But I don't know. For 24, it seems humiliating that we have a prime ministerial residence that has fallen on disrepair and has been neglected. On the other hand, the Prime Minister needs a place to live. There are lots of places to live in Ottawa. Maybe we could consider that 24 Sussex has important symbolic value and could be a museum. It could be there are all kinds of things that one could do with it in a ceremonial way without renovating it as a residence necessarily for the Prime Minister and their family to live. I don't know. I'd love a nice apartment in Ottawa right now if you know anyone who has something that's affordable for the leader of a federal party of that status. But I don't know that we need to invest massive amounts in it as a residence, because I'm not sure that's sort of an old version of thinking of the political class. Prime Minister has got to live somewhere. There's lots of nice housing in Ottawa, and maybe there's another arrangement we could make.
Okay. Avi Lewis, federal NDP leader. We're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, David.